If one of your goals is to become that type of designer who doesn't just design interfaces, but one whose product decisions or design decisions impact the growth of the business, then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Chidimma and I am a product designer who enjoys building businesses and also educating designers on how to design with vision and business impact in mind. This idea of being uncomfortable, being just a UI UX designer to becoming someone who makes impactful design decisions is such an important topic personally to me and should be to every designer out there. Because as of today, the most valuable designers are no longer the designers who know how to design the most impressive user interfaces, know how to create the best mind-blowing animations and the presentations that go viral on social media. The most valuable designers are quickly becoming the type of designers who know how to shape product decisions that impact the growth of the business or the product. So if you're the type of designer whose work is centered around building user interfaces, then you have to become uncomfortable with that. Why? Because most companies are moving from hiring designers who know how to do the most impressive user interface work to hiring the ones who instead knows how to think critically and make decisions that help their business grow. So knowing how to make impactful decisions that grow in business is non-negotiable. You have to become uncomfortable being the designer who is just focused on user interfaces. And that is why I'm making this video. And by the end of this video, you're going to learn how you go from being the designer who is just good with user interfaces to becoming the one who actually makes influential product design decisions that lead to the growth of your business. Before we get into the how, first of all, let's understand who is a design decision maker. And actually, I do have my laptop here with me and I'm going to be breaking it down for you. And from what I have here, it says that a design decision maker is an individual, often a product designer, a UX lead, or a creative director, right? But in this scenario, I'm speaking to designers, so I'm going to be talking on that context. So it is often a product designer who determines the direction, the functionality, and the user experience of a product by evaluating alternatives based on what user needs, based on business constraints, and based on technical feasibility. I know that sounds a lot, that sounds even too technical, but I'm going to break it down to you. So from the explanation or from the definition you can see here is that it's not just a product designer, but in this scenario, it is a product designer who knows how to evaluate alternatives. That is the decisions that you make when you're designing a product, the choice of the color, the choice of the direction you want your design to take. So based on who you're designing for, you have to make the decision based on the business constraints, that is the business model or the resources available for your business. Based on the technical feasibility, that is how well your decisions match with the technicalities that your product developers are working with. So you have to be someone who is not just doing UI work and making things pretty. And then you can see that in the beginning, they don't just design, they also determine the direction that a product thinks. They also determine the functionalities, right? So you're not just told what to do and you just jump into doing it. You have to be able to make that decision to determine. So if you're a product designer and you are just stuck designing interfaces and every other decision is made for you, then that has to change because it's a very dangerous place to be, especially when we have tools that are very good at executing some of these things. You are the one who needs to learn how to think critically and make those decisions in order to stay relevant in your role. And the honest reality is that the designers who are focused on designing scripts are the ones who actually make design decisions that grow businesses. It's often not skill or talent majority of the time, but in how they think. The difference is in how they think. And being a designer who is a critical thinker or who knows how to think great design decisions often comes with a combination of things such as how well you can listen. So they are often good listeners, how well they communicate, they know how to communicate ideas, how well they collaborate with every other team member to bring that idea to life, and how well they execute it from their own end. But here is the big problem. And that is that a lot of designers are still operating from a standpoint, which is a cliche scenario that most designers find themselves in. And that is they are either employed in a particular environment or they are contractors to work on a project and then they are just given a project brief or a bunch of instructions on what to do without having a say of contribution on how to do that. So your project owner just gives you a project briefs and tell you all that, oh, we've seen these people do something like this, we want you to do something similar or even better. And then they give you some snapshots or link to some websites or mobile applications, which I don't think is a bad idea. I mean, inspiration is good, but when you are taking inspiration and executing without the context of the problem that you're solving, that is fully understanding the problem you're solving, context of the user, that is people that will be using this product, and also the context of the business goals, that is what your employer or what your contractor wants to achieve. But all your focus is on execution, and literally you're influencing nothing and you're making no impactful product decision. So you can say that as of today or in this era as a designer, the gap is no longer in the skill set or in the talent, but the gap is now moving from becoming a designer who knows how to design impressive screens to becoming a designer who knows how to align your design decisions in order to make impact on the product that you're building. I mean, I'm more different from most of the designers that are currently facing this particular issue, because I used to be once there. My work looked pretty good and neat, but I wasn't part of the people that were making the core decisions on the trajectory that our project is taking. Meanwhile, I was the one designing it. And no, it wasn't because I wasn't capable, but it was solely because of how I approached my work and my role. Number one, I wasn't confident in the work that I was doing because I felt like I wasn't giving it my 100%. Two, I presented my work like a total newbie, because I was just comfortable being within a team. So all that mattered to me was that I got the work done. So I presented in a very sharpy way. Three, my communication was very weak and poor. And that often got me in trouble whenever I even tried to voice out or give opinions. Because of how poorly I communicated my ideas, they ended up in the trash. So because of those little things, naturally, I wasn't considered or seen as someone who would make impactful decisions for the product that I was building. So I wasn't involved. And honestly, I don't blame my stakeholders at that point, because nothing I did positioned me for someone that should have a voice in making decisions or the direction that the product was going towards. So at some point, I got really uncomfortable being that type of designer. And I decided to switch that up. I was very intentional about doing that. And in months, when I tell you that everything shifted, I meant everything shifted. I could see the way my stakeholders would give me a listening ear, how they would validate my ideas, how they even began to consult me for product decisions, not just to make the UI better. And I could see how over the time, my decisions were validated and they were making great impact to the growth of our products. And in 4 simple steps, I am going to share with you the step-by-step things that I began to do in order to go from being just a UI designer to someone whose voice mattered, someone whose decisions made an impact, and how you can do that for yourself as well. The number one thing that I did differently to end the influence of being a core contributor or a product decision maker is that in my work as a designer, I started optimizing for outcomes before aesthetics. So how did I approach that? So basically, before I design anything, any single screen or feature, I define it by asking myself, what would this element or this feature change in my product? How much impact or what is the goal of this particular decision that I'm making? Because the truth is that when you design without an intention or an impact in mind, you're making beautiful decoration. So for me, that looked like something like this. I'll give an instance of something exactly that I did in my workplace. So a feature that we're about to launch was being tested. And while it was being tested, I as a product designer, I always like to look into what is being done and how well it's been done. So I realized that there was a part of it that had been modified. And I looked at it and I realized that, based on what I am seeing here, this is going to be very confusing for the user. You are going to get to this point that might be confused because of the content of the design. That is because of the UX copy and because of the placement of some components. So I looked at it and I said, you know what, I'm going to work on this. And the next morning, I went on a call with our stakeholder and I explained, this is what the problem is. This is what our user could be facing. They might launch this feature and tomorrow the product is going to be out there and some users are going to be frustrated. And once they get frustrated, might drop off from the entire application, and that is what you know as bounce rates. So I explained not just the problem, but I went ahead to design something and I showcased it. Even before I considered how beautiful did this look, I thought about what is the impact of the functionalities on the user, the flow, the way it works, and how does that impact our business in general. So before you start thinking, oh, you saw something beautiful on Dribble and you're going to implement it on your design, you would ask yourself, does it work for your current user? Is that feasible? Is it even technically feasible? So for me, I began to optimize for the outcomes before I implement any other aesthetics. So there has to be a function that my design plays, not just the beauty of it. The number two thing, that is the second thing that I began to do differently as a designer, is that I began to give recommendations, not so many options. You see, I used to be in this trap where I would design and I would give 1, 2, 3 options. Let us choose from this. And I quickly realized that that was a weak way of working, and that was quite unprofessional, because a lot of the times you are hired as an expert to do the best work, not to stress your stakeholders or your team members on choosing the right design. So if you cannot get your work done perfectly, that means you're not doing your work well. So instead of creating so many designs like I would previously do and ask my team members to make an option, I would just make a good design decision and design something that is great. And I will give them my point of view on why I came up with my design in this way, because that is essentially what is needed from you. Make the best decisions because you're the expert in this situation, and then give your point of view why you made that decision. So I would say, as a designer, I recommend you taking one direction, making something that is backed up by data or by good reasoning, present it, and then give your own point of view on why you did it that way, and then also get the feedback. Then if there is in any way that there needs to be their own feedback, then it becomes collaboration, not you bombing your stakeholders with so many options that they get confused on what to do, which means in return, they are the ones doing the work that you're meant to be doing. So when we learn to give recommendations rather than giving options, one thing that it does is that it helps you build trust as a thinker. Because when you start giving your point of view, the people you're presenting to begin to say, oh, she has a good way of reasoning. She has a good way of thinking. Oh, she thinks in this way. Wow, that thought process is very good. So you are showing them your thinking process over the time. And that is what I basically did. It was one of the things that I started doing that make me position myself even within my team as someone who understands the work that I do and who understands how the decision impacts the product, the users, and the business. Now, the number 3 key thing that I started to do differently was that I began to measure the success of my design by the business outcomes. So no, I don't measure the success of the work that I do by if we have launched or if the feature is out. It's a matter of, have my user been able to experience this? How do they feel about this? What are they experiencing? Is it good or is it bad? What is our business goal with this particular feature? Are we currently experiencing a good result pertaining to that? Or is your design just existing? So if you're the type of designer who creates design that just exists, or is not even achieving the goals that is meant to achieve for your business, then there is a gap that needs to be fixed. It means your design is not a success if it's not able to achieve the goal that your business has set out for themselves or for your users. So no, the success of your design is not dependent on whether the feature has launched or whether you have put it in your portfolio and it's making waves. It is dependent on, oh, we set out to do this thing and we've designed this particular feature. Is that goal being achieved? Are you getting the number of users that you want, or are people dropping off at the onboarding stage? So you need to understand all of this to know if you are succeeding or if you are not as a designer. So personally for me, how I began to approach that was, if I'm asked to design a feature, I would ask myself, this particular feature I'm designing, what is the need? My onboarding screen, is it clear enough for my readers? Do they understand from my onboarding screen what this product is all about? Are they able to continue the sign-up process? The elements of the design, does it help in conversion? The content of the design, is it readable? Is it clear enough? The moment you start asking this question, it will be easier for you to tie every design decision you make to the growth of the business. And once you begin to achieve that as a designer, that is how you begin to know that your work or your design decision is making impact, and that you're not just designing screens just to execute and complete the task that you were given. Now, the number 4 thing that I began to do differently is that I began to take initiative to create value, even when I am not assigned a task. And I know that some designers might not like this, but it is a very, very important thing to do. So I stopped waiting for me to be told what to do, for me to be dragged around. Instead, I started identifying gaps. I started identifying workflows that were not working properly. I started identifying missed opportunities that we could be having, and contributing, giving my opinions on how this could be a good idea. And sometimes it was validated, other times it wasn't, but slowly but surely it built me up to become that type of person who takes initiatives. And this might be very tricky because you might be wondering, well, I'm just within my team, but it's very important because in a scenario where you might leave your job tomorrow and there is someone who probably worked with you before, they could give you a good review like, oh, I know this person, she's a very proactive person, she's someone who could make a good impact in your business just because of the way you acted, even while you were in your team. You take initiatives. It positions you as someone who is a leader of the work that you do. And so, for instance, the initial example that I gave, which is when I saw that something wasn't properly working in a particular feature that we were testing out, I took initiative and said, you know what, this is not going as it should, and I'm not going to keep quiet. I went on to design something that works, and I presented it even without being told. So that is taking initiative. That is positioning you as someone who can work properly even when you're not being watched, even when you're not told something to do. And trust me, it is a very rare skill that once you have, it positions you properly. So whether you find yourself in a small size team, a medium size team, a large size organization, you are the type of person who contributes positively to the growth of the business without even being told. And trust me, it makes you even much more valuable. I have one extra one that is a bonus, but it is even the one that I value the most. And that is communicating and presenting my ideas like a decision maker. So if you don't even show up like a decision maker, you would not be considered one, because the truth is that people judge people by the way they act and the things that they do. Good ideas honestly do not win by just talking about it. I have been in a scenario recently where I reached out to someone to partner with me and build out something. And while I was discussing with the person made mention that 2 other people had reached out for that same opportunity, but they didn't continue with it because they did not just understand what they were talking about. But I came with so much clarity. I explained, I communicated it, I presented it so well that we were willing to partner and do the work together. And that is the power of communication. A lot of designers can even go ahead to suggest what should be done, but because they don't know how to communicate this properly, it might end up not being used. So I will attribute a lot of design decision making to how well you can communicate your ideas. So if a developer does something and they don't do it well, how can you communicate a greater way to do it, not just talking about it? Because talking is different from communication. You have to learn how to communicate ideas in such a way that it's accepted. So even within my team, I learn to pitch my ideas, I learned to pitch my decision. And the truth is that the moment I began to do it intentionally with good reasoning and good data backing it up, majority of the time it is being validated, which was not the case when I did shallow presentation and poor and weak communication. So whenever it is you're making a decision, communicate the business goals and communicate the user's goal, and also communicate the impact that is going to make. Whenever you do it like that, you will be going back and forth with your team. It's so this shift of going from becoming a UI designer to becoming someone who knows how to make solid design decisions that make great impact in the business, it is not the easiest. It requires a lot of work, but trust me, it is even more rewarding. It takes you from just a designer to becoming a designer who shapes how a product works. And guess what, guys? It is at the heart and at the center of what every business owner wants. Every business owner doesn't just want to build, they want to build and also grow their product. So if you are a designer who knows how to take an idea and make decisions that help that business grow or help that product grow, to become a valuable individual.
And that is it, guys. We have finally come to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video and you would like to get more content like this, do well to click on the subscribe button. Don't forget to like and don't forget to comment on this video. Also do well to share it with other designers who you know that it will be of valuable help for. I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Bye.